Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. People online, you can still see this. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We start here. Okay, you can probably see this thing too. Do you only see the slide or do you also see my something else?
Just the slides.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, then we'll get started. Okay, it's really dark in here. Just for you to know on the Zoom area there. So my name is Owaiz Dadabhoy, and I work at Saturna Capital, which is home of the Amana Mutual Fund. But this talk is not really going to be about Amana mutual funds all day long. It's going to be more about educating you about Islamic investing and also something on estate planning, right? Getting your goals going for all these things. So, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam, ala Rasulillah, Rabbi Shraf Sidri, wa yassir li amri, wa hal uqtatam min lisani, yafqahu qawli. Get this thing. Okay. So it's called From the Cradle to the Grave, The Pathway Through Islamic Finance. And it's many slides. So what I'm going to ask you to do today is really pay attention to what I'm saying. Some parts of it you might not really be interested in. That's okay, right? Take a little breather. But I'm going to go pretty fast because I told Shahryar I'm going to add a lot of information today. The sister is blocked. Um, you probably can't see properly here. Okay. So try to take in whatever you can and on your phone, make notes of questions that you have. Because I really want to get through a lot of this for you. Usually what I do is I'll stop and I'll let you ask questions and all that, but I might really go rapid fire on some of this. So just be prepared. It's going to be like that. So some of what I'll talk to you about today will include numbers, right? We might say rate of return is 8 or 10%. This is just to give you estimations, and there are some real numbers at the end that I'll share with you as well. But just know that obviously, certain numbers are going to be estimates. They're all going to be backward looking. They're not telling you about what the future holds. So when you're looking at your own financial planning, what you should be looking at is how do I come up with the goals that I want to achieve? Because at the end of each month, we typically think about your own checking account. You typically end up at the end of the month with the same amount of money you did the month before. Okay. It's not like always going up unless maybe you have like, much higher net worth and low fixed costs, which is amazing. That would be amazing. But for most Americans, they're not able to increase their amount saved or their checking account number. It's always the same. Money comes in, money goes out. That's what they call as, check to check, right? And maybe you have a little bit extra, but we have to get really deliberate because the people that get deliberate, they can actually benefit themselves for the long term. Imagine at the end of the month, you make all your payments, you pay for everything in your life, and you actually feel good about it. And you say, Alhamdulillah, I did the right thing. I also saved, right? So you want to put your savings in front because this is America after all. And in a lot of ways, when we are on our own, right? We know that we're going to be on our own in many different regards. Health insurance is becoming the next thing. People are making decisions. When can I retire? Because if I retire, I lose my health insurance and I'm not going to have Medicare or Medicaid or whatever, right? At this point, until I become a certain age. Like we're having to make more decisions now than we were in the past. There's people getting cut off from different kinds of benefits. And I'll give you an example. Every month, the charity that I'm part of in Southern California, we have a drive-through distribution where we give 50 pounds of food to each person. And there's going to be 550 people coming in the December one, right? We're going to give 1,000 chickens. We added 1,000 chickens this time because we knew that the SNAP issue was there. So 50 pounds of food plus each person will get roughly 2 chicken, right, this time. And the reason I tell you the story is for you to understand it's Southern California, people are living good, except the people that have come later in life or they don't have as much education and now they're facing difficulty. And so the other part that I want to tell you is that we find a lot of elderly coming there. And so why are the elderly coming? Because they didn't plan well enough, perhaps, or maybe something happened in their life. Allahu alam, right? Allah knows best. But in many people's cases, it's because we didn't plan right, and we could have. And so I'm going to show some things to you that inshallah will help you and inspire you to start doing this for yourself. Because if you start doing it, you can have a lot of success. And if you don't, then we'll end up wherever we end up, right? We don't know. But we have to plan for it. We have to be deliberate. And even in our deen, there's thoughts in hadith about how the Prophet ﷺ and his companions would plan for things. It wasn't just let's just keep working and something will happen and make dua. You have to take action as well, right? And the other thing is people say, well, I don't need to have a lot of money. That's fine. Maybe you can give away all your money on a monthly basis, all your excess. Some people do that, right? They know that they're going to keep getting money. They're fine. They're going to give the rest of the masjid for charity, whatever, and they're going to end up with nothing really extra or saved. But for those of you that want to save, you can do those things and also save because there's something called zakat. And zakat is there because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that many were going to have excess cash. And that was okay as long as you're paying your zakat. So just want to give you that as well. So when you're looking at this, I want you to think about your own goals for a second. What are your goals? How many of you have been to Hajj? Be proud. How many of you have been to Hajj? Okay. So about 6 or 7 of us, right? Alhamdulillah, great, right? Who went the furthest back? Like how many years ago was the longest? Like who thinks that they went 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Okay, 25 years ago? How about you? Okay, so about the same, 25 years then, right? How much was your Hajj back then? 4,000? 5,000? I estimate that mine was 3,000. I went the year after I got married, so I went in '96. We don't even know because it wasn't a package, right? It was basically you show up. I remember still we showed up there and where the haram is there, and there's houses close by, and they all have like extra units, right? Little houses there or little rooms, and you can just rent a room. And so we did that. Those were the times where you could do that. Those are all gone now. All those homes are gone, and now it's one huge structure. But the point is, it used to cost a lot less. I just got married. I was pretty young, had a okay income, not very good, but I could afford to go. I told my parents I want to go after I get married. The year after I get married, let's go to Hajj. So they went with me, and I was able to pay for that and not have any debts and go. But nowadays, if someone wants to do that, let's say somebody again gets married at 25, they want to go to Hajj when they're 26. How much is Hajj today? 20,000? Anybody disagree with that or think it's a different number? Online people can participate too, by the way. 20,000? 25. Give me 15,000, give me 30, right? So I've heard that it can go from anywhere from 15 to 25 now. And obviously you can do even more than that if you want to have, you've seen some of the videos of, what people have done with Hajj these days, right? In in different parts of the Hajj process. So what you want to do for Hajj is you want to first make your intention. So for those that have not gone to Hajj and for those that have gone that want to go again, you can make your intention now. Make your intention that I'm making my intention now that I want to go to Hajj and I'm going to determine when I'm going to do that. Maybe you'll do that in the next day or two. But today, just right now, tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, that we are all making intention to go to Hajj. Can you do that? If something happens between now and then and we had the true intention, oh, it's for you. Okay. We had the true intention, inshallah, your Hajj will be still accepted, right? But if you have never made the intention, then you've missed it, especially if you have the money to go or you have the ability to plan to go. So the first thing is make the intention. The second thing is start saving money for it. So if it's going to cost you 20,000 for yourself, you need to figure out how much it's going to cost or put aside on a monthly basis. And you say, I'm going to go in 4 years, inshallah. So how much I need to save $5,000 a year. So I need to save $400 a month. As simple as that, right? That goal is taken care of. Then you go to your children's education. Anybody have a young baby? How old is your baby? 9 months. Okay, so we're going to use your baby in our example. What's your baby's name? Ikra. Okay, mashallah. So we'll talk about how we can get to Ikra's goals of education. And then for those of you that are young, you might look at retirement and say, man, he should really talk about something else because retirement is 40 years away from me. but it's exactly you that I want to talk to. And I keep looking at him because he's probably one of the younger people in the audience here. It's you that are going to be able to make the biggest difference. For those that are not that age, you'll still be able to make a difference. It's going to be hard, right? Because you don't have as much time. So whatever I talk about, think about this for all your other goals as well. Your other goals might be to buy a house, to start a business, etc. Okay, these are the goals of investing. For those of you that might have a good amount of capital and you just want to preserve it, there's a way to do that. For many of us, if we're saving for a long-term goal, we need the growth, right? We need excess growth to be able to get there. For some of us, we want to take a little bit less risk and we want to have income from our investments. Now, if you do invest, whether it's in your 401k or somewhere else, you want to think about the long term. You don't want to look at it and say, I just bought, let's just pick one, Arista Networks. I just bought Arista Networks. If it goes up a little bit, I'll make a decision to sell. That's not investing, right? That's a hope, that's a dream, and that's trading, which is okay. You're allowed to trade, but it's not investing. If you really want to take the advantage of investing, you have to think about the long term. So, quick example: has anyone here bought an individual stock? I won't ask you to name it unless you want to. Okay. Do you want to name which stock that you bought that you had success with? Microsoft. Okay. Do you still own it today? Okay. So you've done long-term investing, right? Are there any stocks that you had where you had a large gain and then you sold it and you said, Alhamdulillah? Yeah, there's a couple. Give me an example. Just give me one example, just for everyone else to understand. Charter. Oh, this is a long time ago. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to the brother next to you. You're talking about stocks from a long time ago. Go ahead. What was the one that you had success with? NVIDIA. How did you sell it already? Okay. Okay. So these brothers are giving me stocks that either are 40 years ago or they still own. But I'll give you a quick example. So let's say you bought Apple shares. I've bought Apple shares 3 times in my life, right? I don't own the individual shares anymore. I own it in the mutual fund, but I don't own the individual shares anymore, right? So I'm doing exactly what I'm telling you not to do, except for your extra money. So if I bought Apple at $100 a share and it went to 200, am I most likely going to sell at that point? Right? It doubled. I doubled my money. There's a rule in the market that people talk about that pigs get slaughtered, right? So don't be a pig when you're investing. If you made some money, get out. But that's trading. That's not really investing. So if you look at Amazon, we don't own it because they sell alcohol now and everything on the website and pork and everything. But when it came out, it might have been $10 or $20 a share. When it went double, everyone got out, right? Most people got out. But if you were lucky and you waited for it to triple, you got out at that point. But now it's gone up 500 times, right? You could have become a millionaire from those shares that you would have kept. So just to give you an example of mutual fund investing, this is where professionals manage it without the emotion. So the example is this: we have Apple shares in the portfolio, in the growth fund and the income fund, and the average share price is $1 per share. And I don't know what the split adjusted price is today, maybe $200 or something like that. But it's $1 a share. Okay. None of us would have held on for that long. And so what happens is the mutual fund is going to have a much better performance than our individual trading. Now, if you have 100% of your money and you really want to make trades on your own, what I tell people to do is take 90% of it. If it's your serious money, have it in funds. And the rest of it, if you want to go pick stocks yourself, go ahead and do it, right? And you'll understand why in a little bit. So I'm going to stop there on that one. In terms of Islamic investing, there's a couple of different components. There's forbidding the evil and enjoining the good. So forbidding the evil, not all of this is actually evil, right? Like the parts of it are equal. Like, for example, financial services, we use them every day. So not every part of it is forbidden, but the riba part is the bad part, right? I was looking at a credit card that I have, and I make the payments like 3 times a month. I see it, I make the payment. It's just all the time, just making payments. I just don't want to have balance there. And I looked at the interest rate, and it was 29.9%. Right? They make me offers for lower, but I don't even take it because I don't need it. I'm going to pay it off. But think about that. That is not a good system, right? Where if you have a 30% interest rate, you will never pay down a $10,000 debt. because you're paying the minimum. You're just going to keep letting this continue to grow. So alcohol, banking, insurance that is dealing with a lot of riba, tobacco, weapons, warfare, right? Gambling, pork products, pornography, which, any kind of things that we all know outwardly that we don't want to invest in. That's the easy part. So if you're doing individual investing, and let's say you're doing a great job, you're going to have a portfolio of 35 different stocks. It's going to be diversified. It's not just in technology. It's in all these different sectors. You're going to be able to see that and say, I don't want to invest in this because it's Boeing. They create planes, but they also create things on for the battlefield. So I don't want to own Boeing. But there might be a company that you look at and it looks outwardly okay, but on the side they have some other things that they're doing, right? They could have something that they're producing that you don't like, and you won't be able to see that. The second thing is the financial ratios. So the debt that the company has, the haram revenues that it has, and then the accounts receivables, right? I'm going to get into these numbers a little bit later, but we don't want any haram in our stocks, right? But we can't avoid it, unfortunately. So what the scholars have said is as long as it's less than a certain percentage, which I'll get into in a little bit. And what this typically turns out to be is interest income, because companies own cash accounts, which they're earning interest on, but they also have debt. They're doing both sides of it, right? Even Apple, that has $100 billion in cash, has debt and it has interest income. So the interest income has to be below a certain percentage. The enjoining the good part is these points right here: good corporate governance and sustainability, social benefits, workplace equality. I'm going to go through these very quickly. I don't usually talk about these, but like, for example, water management, right? That's something that we as Muslims look at. Deforestation, um, looking beyond just the things that we can see in the front. We have to look at things that maybe everyone else is not seeing. We all, as portfolio managers, we can do that. And then accountability. And so this accountability part has kept us away from some of the magnificent eight companies, right? There's eight companies that make that up. It was seven, but they just added Broadcom now. So there's eight. But we don't own a few of them because of their governance, and how they run things and how their CEOs run things. So we just decided we're not going to invest in it, even if it's not helping us in our portfolio. So the types of investments that you have opportunities to buy in your life, you can have mutual funds that are Islamically, provided to you. You can have managed securities, which is, let's say you have a portfolio, you have $1 million, and you don't want to buy funds, you want individual securities, you want somebody to do that for you. That can be done. You can have real estate investing. And then within the stocks, there's blue chips, growth companies, dividend companies, international. And then there's something called sukuk, which are it's not exactly equal, but it's similar to bonds, right? So when I was at Intel yesterday with Shahriar and some people there that were listening, we were talking about, the question came up, what advisors will recommend is as you get older, you shouldn't have all your money in stocks, right? Because it's all in the market, all ready to go up and down every day. So you're supposed to have some bonds. So what do we have as Muslims? And we created this 10 years ago. So we own about 35 to 40 different sukuk inside of this fund, the participation fund. So now you can have the lower risk and you can have the stock risk as well. This one, the participation fund, will have that through the sukuk. Okay. And you can ask your questions a little bit later. Some of you may not be investing yet because you have debt. And so what we did was we came up with this halal investment priorities slide, which talks about like what's the order of operations. If you're a young person, for example, and you're just starting off and you have some unfortunate debt through education, or you have some other debt that you didn't realize you shouldn't have got into, how do you go through this, right? So the first thing that you need to do is have enough cash on the side, even just for deductibles. So you have health insurance, you have to have enough for deductibles. Most of us don't have that challenge. But if you do, put some money aside just for, paying for the deductibles on your car insurance or your health insurance. You should take care of your credit card debt because, like I said, credit card debt could be 20, 30%. And if you let that to stay there and you just pay the minimum amounts or a little bit above, it's going to consume you, right? That's what riba does. And then you go to low interest riba debt. So you may have come into, let's say you got the education loan, a continuous charity, which gives riba free loans, right? So, well, actually, this one is riba debt. So this one is if you had a student loan that was at 4%, that's pretty low interest rate, but it's riba, so you need to take care of that, right? Credit card is first because it has the high debt. Then you're going to the low debt, and then you're going to the match. And some of this can be done together. Like what I suggest is do these things together. Especially you just went and got a good job. You have this little debt here and there, and you need to save as well. Get started with the investing as well. So do both at the same time if you're able to couple them. But if your debt is so much, pay that debt down as much as possible on a monthly basis until you've eliminated it. And I won't go through the rest, but the emergency reserves are hugely important. And we're seeing that now, right? So for the last few years when I'm talking about it, people are just like not even listening to it that much because everything was good. But now people are losing jobs. We're hearing about 12,000 layoffs here, 15 there. Federal government employees. I know people that work at the federal government laid off, right? Or let go completely. And so what we need to do is we need to have enough reserves in case we are struck by that. So technology companies, banking sector, you name it, like everyone's getting hit in some way. And so if even at my wife's company, they do customer service for other companies and they've laid off 20% recently, right? They lost one contract because people are feeling the pinch. And so 20% got laid off just like that. And so what are those people going to do? Maybe they get a month or two of severance, maybe not. But even if you get a month or two, what if your layoff lasts for 6 months? The state, unemployment is not going to cover you enough. So you need to have enough cash. You don't need to put all of your money into investments. You need to have some cash as well. If you can give me some water at some point. It's not a rush, but so now I'm going to talk to you about what you can do. We talked about kind of framing this, when you want to start saving, how you want to pay off your debt, what kind of investments you should have. It should be Sharia compliant versus buying anything, right? If you go buy a Fidelity or Vanguard S&P 500 fund, you're going to own everything that you don't want to own. You might own Anheuser-Busch, you might own Boeing in there, right? You're going to have banks and insurance companies. You're going to own all the things that you don't want to own. So, including warfare, right? Weaponry. So you don't want to do those things. So you want to get out of that as soon as possible. I think you're stuck on there. All right, but now we're going to talk about how we're going to save, and this is the fun part. So, college costs have been going up for a long time. They're going up by 7 to 10%. Recently, they declined from certain parts, right? So there was a decline from 2014 and 15 and 24 to 25 because I wanted to share the good news as well. But the bad news was I was reporting until 2014 that it was like a 7 to 10% increase. And then from after 2015 to 2024, again, 7 to 10% increase every year. So whatever you paid for college, your children are going to pay double or triple, right? So we need to be able to save enough money for this. And then the average cost of education right now for a 4-year nonprofit 4-year school, private school, is going to be 43,000, and a 4-year public school is 11,000, and the 2 year is $4,000, right? So it's going to depend where your kids go. If they go to Stanford or Caltech or something like that, it's going to cost a lot of money. I know people. I was talking to one of the imams in Southern California. He became an optometrist, and he talked to me after the presentation about a month ago. He said, I have a lot of education debt. I had to do it to become an optometrist. He's still imam part-time there, but he's also an optometrist. And so he had a significant amount of debt. And so, the numbers I was sharing with you there about the cost of college and whatnot, some of the becoming an attorney or a doctor or optometrist or whatnot is going to cost you a lot more. So we have to plan for it. The average student, the last numbers that I have for this are 2019. The average student in America came out with about $30,000 worth of student debt. So as soon as they come out, they already have debt, right? And that includes people that have zero debt and people that have $200,000 worth of debt. That's the average amount of debt. So we want to get rid of that somehow. One way to do it is to start putting money aside in a 529 plan. The only issue is since 2008, when I've been giving this presentation, it looked different, obviously, but I had this part in there. few halal choices. And we still don't have even one halal choice on a 529 plan. We're working with the state of Washington and Michigan to try to get them to include one of our funds in there. But after the new administration came in, they cut off talks. So we were this close to making the Washington plan happen, and then they stopped talking to us after the new administration came in, because these kinds of things are now frowned upon. So we'll have to wait and we'll have to see. But the 529 plan allows you to put a lot of money in, so that's the benefit. There's an education savings account that's been around for decades. It doesn't get any love from the government, so they don't improve it. So the $2,000 per year has never gone up. If you remember the individual retirement account, the maximum per year was $2,000, but now it's seven because they pay attention to it, right? They don't really care about this one. They allow it to still happen, but they're not improving it like the 529 plan. So if you do this one, you can put in 2,000 per year. For most people, that's a big step up anyway because they're not saving anything for their children, right? But the problem is that you can't take the full amount of deductibility and put money into this if you make more than 190,000 joint income. Once you get to 220,000, you can't put a dime in there. Otherwise, you'll be taxed on what you put in. So you only want to use this if your income is lower. If you don't, if you make too much money, you can't put money into that. Then you can open up a minor account, UGMA, a minor account. So if you go to the bank or if you go to an investment company like ours, you can just say, I want to open up a minor account. And instead of having the $2,000 restriction per year, you can put in about 38,000. If you're a married couple, you can put in 38,000 per child. So you can put in a lot of money, and there's not much restriction here because it's not for education. You can use it for education. You can give money, to buy their first house or to buy a car. You can use this for many different purposes. And you can do both. You can do education savings account and you can do a minor account as well. So how do we save enough money? If this particular one just shows $83 a month of savings when your child is born, and so you put in $1,000 a year. So let's say Ikra, she's already born, she's 9 months old, mashallah. So we'll say that he's just going to fund it with $1,000 this year, and then every month after that, starting in age 2, he's going to put in $83 a month, which is $1,000 a year. So after the first 3 years, he will have put in how much? Somebody give me the answer, and I'll give you this notebook. 3,000. Who was that? Okay, pass that over to that brother. Thank you. So $3,000, and we got to 3,194, which is not a huge, great investment yet, right? So after 18 years, how much have we put in? How much? How much have we put in after 18 years? From age 1 to 18, so 18. Okay, so we put in 18,000 because we put in $1,000 a year, and now it became 34,000. Now we're talking, right? How much was the average debt? 30,000. So if you had that, you could have covered the average debt. 35,000 versus 30. So if you just do this one simple thing, $83 a month, and this is at a 7% rate of return. If you end up getting a 10% rate of return, you'll have much more than 35,000. Now, how much can we put into the education savings account per year? 2,000, right? You were looking at the minor account. $2,000 a year. So instead of $83 a month, if you put in for ICRA $166 a month, that's 2,000 a year. You'll end up with 70,000 in this formula at 7%. Okay. I did this for my kids. I put money aside in minor accounts and whatnot. And my daughter graduated 2 years of what we call junior college, and then she went to UCLA for 2 years, and I still have half of it. So now she has to use it for a master's degree, right? So if she wants to go do that, or I'll give it to my son because he just started junior college now, so he's gonna go. I don't know which school he's gonna go to, which university. So maybe his is gonna cost a lot more. But that paid for her tuition. It paid for her rent for her apartment right across the street from UCLA. I bought a laptop with it, and the costs that are associated with school you can take out of an education account. And then once I couldn't put enough money into the education account, I put money into a minor account. I'm not even talking about that. The half the money that I'm talking about was the few years that I put in money for her in the education account. Just a few years, right? I didn't put it in for 18 years because I started a little bit late because I wasn't working here yet. I started in 2009. So I missed 7 years. But when I started working, I started putting money, and I end up having enough where I still have half of her. So take the same thing. So now we talked about Hajj, we talked about education. You need to open up separate accounts for this. And then remember, if you start putting in money like this, and then you spend the rest of your money, you spend for Ikra $166 a month. You spend for your Hajj, your personal Hajj, $400 a month, and you're able to go to Hajj in 5 years. You're able to get your kid educated. And every month when you go out and buy the meals, which costs a lot more money now, you go to a restaurant, costs so much money. All the things that you do, you're going to be happy because you've already done the part that you need to do. You see what I'm saying? So take my advice on this. Whether you invest with us or not, I'm not talking much about our funds, right? Trust me, you got to do this because nobody is going to do it for you. And some people will say, well, my child might get FAFSA. Well, maybe they won't. My child might get a sponsorship. They might be able to get some type of government assistance if we don't have enough money for them, right? Then they can't say that we don't need the money. But what I tell people like that is, why do you want to put it in somebody else's hands when you can easily do it yourself? So that's my advice there. And then these, if you want to take a snapshot of this, if your kids are a little bit older, ICRA really it won't matter right now for ICRA, but ISNA is the Islamic Scholarship or Islamic Society of North America. It's been around for 50 years. They offer like 20 or more scholarships every year, probably closer to 40, but I can't remember how many exactly. We fund one as well. That's why I know it so well, right? And what's going to happen there is the Muslim population is what percentage of the total? 1%, right? 1 to 2%. So when you have ISNA, none of you know who ISNA is except maybe Shariar, maybe a couple of you. So you don't even know what ISNA is. So the only people applying are the Muslims, 1%, but about 1/100th of that 1% because nobody even knows ISNA. So my point is, you have a great opportunity to actually land a scholarship for your child because hardly anyone's applying. Okay. Number two is the Islamic Scholarship Fund. They're based out of Northern California, but they give scholarships throughout the country, usually 5 to 10,000. And this is for some specific areas that Muslims are really not participating. So they're not going to give it for engineers or doctors or IT or lawyers, right? They're not going to give it for that. They're going to give it for filmmaking or going into something that's related to eventually going to politics or production, like going into the film industry or becoming a reporter or something like that. So if your child ends up wanting to do that, go to IslamicScholarshipFund.org. And then the last one, the last two are the same one. ACC Educate is a continuouscharity.org. This one gives interest-free loans. So what happens is your child gets a loan. When they graduate, they get a job, they start paying back the loan interest-free. And so the next kid, when Ikra is 18 years old, all these people have been paying back. The money's still there. It's constant, right? It's a sadaqah jariyah. If you give them a donation, that money is going to keep giving loans out to people, right? For as long as we know. And so then Ikra, 18 years later, that same money that she borrowed has been going through once, twice, maybe 10 times by the time Ikra gets $20,000 or whatever she needs. So you can also have them do that. All right, now this part is going to talk about retirement. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? Okay. So, how many of you are planning to work until you pass? Because that's okay. Because that's actually a good thing, right? That you just keep going. That's all right to do. Some people they retire in 2 years later. I mean that happens a lot because you kind of lose your purpose. So if you are going to retire, just know what you're going to do after that. Whether it's charity work, help out at a food pantry, do something, right? Help the masjid, get involved a little bit, whatever it happens to be. But for some people, they're going to work forever. But for most of us, we don't want to work forever. I love what I'm doing, so I could keep going, right? But even with that, like I want to go do some other things as well. I'm already doing some other things, but I want to do more of it. And so I plan to retire too, even though I can just keep this going forever, right? The work that I do. So in order to do that, we're going to need to really plan. There's different areas that we're going to talk about nearing retirement, where your income sources are, how much Social Security income you might get, healthcare costs. I'm going to give it to you all today, right? The one we did at Intel was very short, but I'm going to give you more than I've ever given before, right? I'm going to do a longer presentation. That's why I'm not taking a lot of questions, but I want you to really focus in on this. When you're nearing retirement, you might be 3, 5, 7, or 10 years or longer. Your investments are going to be based on how much time you have left until retirement. Because if your retirement is 3 years away, you got to take a lot of the risk away from the portfolio. If your retirement is 20 years away, you need to put a lot of educated risk into your portfolio so we can grow this thing, right? We're going to need all this money, and I'll explain why. Are we making some changes in life? Um, what kind of lifestyle are we leading? Can we take something back a little bit? Maybe we're not spending enough. Maybe we're spending too much, right? Maybe we're holding on too much. Maybe we're spending too much on things that we don't even know. But if we have goals like education, HUD, retirement, we can start to look at our other things and say, we're overspending on this. Let's put some of that, let's redo this, reallocate and put it into savings. If your child just started working, and I've told my kids this, but my daughter started her Roth IRA when she was 17, actually, right? So as soon as you start working, or before you start thinking of this, you don't want to come up with all the fixed costs in your life yet. That's too late for all of us, right? You have rent is a fixed cost or mortgage. You have a car is a fixed cost. You have subscriptions that are fixed cost. And you have utilities and things like that, right? But as a young person, start with the savings first. So make sure you tell them that. Start with your savings first. Figure out all these different things you need to save. 100 here for this, 200 here for this. Plan for your HUD already. You're only 22. That's okay. Plan for your HUD. You're going to go in 6 years, right? So put all of that aside, and then with the remainder of your money, then you can go get your lease for your car. Then you can go rent a place if you need to do that. Those kinds of things. So let your kids know about that. This is an issue that many people are thinking about. They don't know how to figure out, will I have enough money in retirement? When there was a poll done, Wells Fargo did it. 37% said they have absolutely no idea how much money they'll need in retirement. They don't know how much they'll need. They don't know how much they will have, and they don't know how much they need, right? So I'm going to try to show you what you will need today. And these are the places that you're going to have money in retirement. Your personal money, which could be your 401k, your IRA, or just a regular investment. Maybe you have a second home that you're going to sell or get the income from it. A pension plan. How many of you have a pension plan where your company is going to pay for you? You guys see that? There's 2 people. You see that? Online, you can't see that, but there's 2 people out of 30 that have a pension plan because the pension plan is going the way of the dinosaurs. It actually already has. It's almost extinct, right? Only, really high up executives. And I mean, this is like 5 people in each company. And also you have government workers, right? Like my brother, he works for a city in Southern California, and he has a pension plan. Cops, fire, all of those will have a pension plan. So you can take that one off. You don't need to look at it. You can cross it off. So the next one is Social Security. And then the fourth one is a rather unfortunate one too, because we talked about how most of us want to retire. No one raised their hand and said they want to keep working. So we're still going to work in retirement. I thought it was retirement, right? Which one is it? Is it retirement or is it work? Well, we're looking at both. I don't want to make this too much post about my family. Maybe you might know some of my family. I don't know. But 2 of my uncles, they were they retired, and they said, you know what? We're going to go back and work at Home Depot. Why? Better insurance. Like they have really good insurance there. Going to work like 15, 20 hours a week. No big deal. Garden center, whatever, right? The garden section of Home Depot. They enjoy it, but maybe we wouldn't want to do that. So do we want to have employment during retirement? But it is a source of income. So figure out which one you're going to be. If you don't have a pension plan, then you're done. You can't do it. You mark that one off. Okay, you can take it off now. All right. So you're going to have your own savings account and investment account because we're talking about that today. You don't have the pension plan, you marked it off. Social Security, we'll talk about right now. And then we're going to strike off employment in retirement. So you have 2 places that you're going to have money. All right. And these are the ways that you can save. The ones in black, 401k, IRA, individual stocks, which I don't really recommend doing that unless, again, it's 10% of your money where you just feel the need to do it. Mutual funds, which can be the majority of your money because it's professionally managed. CDs are riba, so we can't do that. Annuities and bonds are riba, so we can't do that. You can do real estate or the cash value portion of life insurance as well, because that's what you're going to put in. So those are your options, or just a regular savings account, and you pay the interest um, to the masjid or to a nonprofit organization because we don't want that, right? So you just give that away. So on a pension plan, you're going to receive either a monthly income stream or a lump sum. I had one gentleman in San Diego. He called me and he was really perplexed. What should I do? Should I take this $900,000 pension lump sum, or should I take the payout every month? And then if I pass away, my wife will get a smaller payout. So we looked at it, we calculated it. If he passed away soon, and then his wife had it for a long time, they wouldn't get all of the money out of it, right? Because let's say if they both pass away, it's ended. The 900,000 that he would have gotten, it's all gone. That's how it works. If you're living to your 120, they'll keep paying you even if they paid more than 900,000. So what he ended up doing is he took a lump sum and then he invested it and took the return from that and lived. So he was taking out $6,000 a month, and his 900,000 is 1.1 million right now. It's been about 10 years. So you can do those kinds of things. You have to make decisions on your pension plan, which way you want to go. Um, and then you have Social Security, which the average check in America is $2,008, and there's 40 million people that are retired and getting Social Security income. 40 million people. So, does anyone know someone that gets less than $2,000 a month in Social Security? Not yourself, but do you know somebody? I know somebody because the organization I work with in Southern California, we're helping people, right, with the local zakat money. There's one lady that I was giving a talk at the Shura Council, and she came up to me. She was working for a Muslim nonprofit, and she said, "Brother," she's Indonesian. She said, "Brother, you're right. I get $300 a month in Social Security. That's why I have to keep working." Another brother who was really down and out, he's getting $500 a month, right? I mean, you can't live off of that. Like, you cannot live off of that. So, and then there's people that are going to have 3,000, but not much more than that. Okay, there's going to be a cap. So if you paid in for 40 years probably and you had a decent income, you're going to get about 2,000. If you made a lot of income and you paid a lot more, you're probably going to get 3,000 today. The average is 2,000. So my question to you is, how much is a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in this area in Beaverton? I'll give you one of these if you participate. Go ahead. Somebody raise your hand. Yeah. 2,300. Okay. You got a book already? Okay. I'll try to give you something else. How about you, sister? Somebody raise your hand over here. Yeah, go ahead. How much? 1,500. Okay. So is that about right? About 1,500? We agree on that? Okay. In most areas, it's like in Southern California, it's 2,100 for 1 bedroom right now in Orange County and LA. But you could probably find something further, like about 60 miles away for 1,500, maybe, right? So your area, $1,500 a month. So now say you got this 2,000 in Social Security income, you don't have a pension, you're not working, and you don't have any savings on your own. How are you going to pay for your life? And most people have not thought about this. That we haven't actually thought what is going to happen 20 years from now when we think about retiring. And there's probably some people in the room here today are going, this happened to me. Like, I didn't plan and look what happened to me. So this is not going to be enough. I can tell you right now, it's not going to be enough. And they're going to have cost of living increases. It's usually 2.5% to 3%. 1 year was 9% because of the inflation went up right after COVID. That's not going to get you to where you want to be. So if you're paying your rent for $1,500, what else do you have to pay for? Food, utilities, right? Car insurance, all these things. What if you own your home outright? What if you already paid for your home? Are you good now? Because you don't have rent? Why? Why, Ikra's father? Why? Property tax. What else do you have to pay for, which costs a lot of money these days? Repair, homeowners insurance has gone up so much, right? And like this might be the new way of living, a lot of inflation in our lives. So, and hopefully it's not. Hopefully, inshallah, it'll smooth out, but it doesn't really show that right now. So you guys get the point that we can't live off of this. So we have to do something on our own. If you go to ssa.gov, you can put in your social security number, put in your put in your social security number, and you can claim your own account before somebody else does, hopefully. Because these days, people get our social security numbers, our phone number, everything is out there, right? So you can go there and it'll tell you once you set up your account how much you're due to get when you retire. It'll tell you if you retire at 62, 65, or 70, I think, right? You'll have a lot more at 70, but at 62, if you retire, this is how much you'll get. It's like a 30% haircut. So you want to figure that out because now you need to see is this going to be enough to live off of? I'm going to get $2,800 a month in Social Security. Can I imagine myself living off of that? You'll probably never travel again, right? Okay. So there was this study that we were talking about. There was another one through this Every Education Research Fund where 79% of Americans said that they still intend to work after retirement. But they didn't ask them why. Well, I think they asked like work for pay after retiring, right? So 29% actually did that. But the people that they were being asked about, 79% said that they would work afterwards, and 29% of the people being interviewed were already working after retirement. Okay. And 48% retired earlier than they planned. Now, they didn't ask them questions like, why are you going to continue to work? Is it because you think that you're not going to have enough income? Is it because you don't want to retire? Why did you retire earlier than you planned? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe they had enough money. Maybe they got hurt. I had a colleague that had two bad knees and he couldn't work anymore. The irony is he was a little bit older. I won't give you the exact details, right? It's too close to, we're one community, so you never know, right? So he was on the older side. He retired 2 years before he retired. He got a 30-year loan. He refinanced his house for 30 years. Okay. So this is the America we live in. Like you're retired, but you just had to redo your loan for one reason or another. And so, try to be the people that will have enough money so you don't have to work. If you work, it's because you want to work. So this is an example of putting in $7,000 a year, which is the IRA limit, individual retirement account limit. In your 401k, do you guys know how much you can put in 2025? Approximately 23,000 or so. So this is just the IRA limit. Okay. You can put in much more than that. So 7,000 a year, which if how much is that per month? Let's say 550 a month, $275 a pay period. At a 7% average rate of return, by the time you're 65, you would have 1.5 million if you started at 25. That is amazing. Yes. If what? Oh yeah. If you're 50 or above, you can put in another 1,000 per year into an IRA. So, but we're just saying whatever investment this is, right? It's for your retirement. So maybe it's a regular investment account, maybe it's an IRA, maybe it's a 401k, but it's an investment. So what if you waited? Okay, you didn't hear this talk, you didn't put money into an IRA. Now you're 35 years of age and you just started. So you missed 10 years, right? If you're 35, by the time you get to 65, you'll have 707,000. What is the gap between the 25 and 35 years? 10 years, right? So how much did you not put in during those 10 years? 10 times 7, huh? 70,000. How much did we lose for not putting in 70,000? Yes, more than 700,000, right? Almost $800,000. Why is that? Because the compounding effect. The 7,000 that you put in when you were 25 is worth a lot more money than the 7,000 you put in at 45. It's a lot more because it's compounding every year. So if you get a 7% return every year, 7,000 became almost 8,000, became almost 9,000, became 10,000. So that money is becoming a lot more. It's compounding. So what you need to do is you need to take advantage of time because we just showed you that if you miss $70,000 because of those 10 years now, and you can't just, you turn 35 and you say, okay, I'm going to put in $70,000 right there because I missed those 10 years. That's a good start, but it's not enough because the 70,000 you put in here was worth a lot more than 70,000. It grew to something much larger, right? Now, I'll use this slide here as an example for you because some of you have a 401k that's pre-tax Some of you have Roth. You guys know the difference between the two? Roth is where you put money in and you don't have a tax benefit today. So let's say somebody's making $100,000 a year and they put in $10,000 into their 401k, and it's pre-tax. Their income at the end of the year will show as how much? 90, right? So that means they're going to get taxed federal and state on 90,000. So that's nice. So you saved probably $3,000 in taxes because you put 10,000, you didn't get taxed federal and state, so you saved probably $3,000. If you had Roth 401k, you put in 100,000, 10,000 went to your 401k. How much does your W-2 show at the end of the year? 100,000, no tax benefit. You didn't save any money on taxes. Fast forward until retirement. Let's say you're the fortunate one with 1.5 million. If you pull out $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year, how much are you going to be taxed if it's pre-tax? It's going to show up as income. The whole amount will show up as income. If it was Roth money, all 50, 70, 100,000 a year will be tax-free. You can pull out all 1.5 million and go to the favorite country, the country you came from, or Brazil, or someplace that you want to retire, right? Take your $1.5 million, no tax. So you have to make the decision. Do you want to take the benefit now, which is kind of small, or do you want to take the benefit later? And for some of us, we didn't have a choice because they didn't have Roth many years ago. So we're starting to put money in both now. So you can have two buckets of money. When you get to retirement and the first year of retirement, you say, you know what, I still have a good income. I retired, but I had a lot of income already. If I pull money out of my pre-tax, it's going to show up as income, and that's going to raise how much I get taxed, right? Because it's a graduated tax system. The first $50,000, let's call it, it has a very low tax rate. But when you get to 200,000, 250, you have more tax on those dollars. When you get to 400,000, you're going to be at like 37% tax. Same with the state. So if you take out money from there, it's going to raise how much you made, and it's going to raise the amount of tax that you pay. So that year you say, let me take it out of my Roth bucket. Next year you had no income, just Social Security maybe, right? So now you say, okay, I can take pre-tax out. I'll take out $80,000. I'll get taxed on 80,000, but it won't be that much. So that's the kind of decisions you can make at that time. Any questions? Yes, you can contribute to both an IRA and to a 401k at the same time. And the same limits still apply. All right, so now I've already done most of the talking here about this, which is you can put in 7,000 a year into an IRA. Brother already told us if you're 50 or above, you can put another $1,000 catch up. You can have halal investments in there as well, and it's pre-tax. So if you put money into a traditional IRA, now leave aside the 401k. We were talking about the 401k. If you put money into an IRA, pre-tax or traditional, when you do your taxes in March or April, your accountant or the tax software will say, "Did you put money into a traditional IRA?" And you say, "I put in 7,000." You're going to get some of that money back. You're going to get maybe $2,000 back on your taxes, right? But if you do Roth and you tell your tax software you put in 7,000, you don't get a penny back. But again, when you go to that graph and you have 1.5 million or whatever the dollar amount is, you're going to be able to take it out tax-free at that time. So you can take the benefit now or later. Going back to the $1.5 million number, if you take about 5% of that out a year, that's about $75,000, right? That money will last forever. The 1.5 million will never go down, right? If you have the right investments for the long-term average that you're getting 7%, certain years you might get 20%, certain years you might get 0. So if you take out something like closer to 5%, it's going to smooth out everything, and you'll be able to use this money for the rest of your life. So that's what you want to think about is when you're retiring, the last couple of years of income, you want to take 70% of that, and that's the income you're going to need on an annual basis. That's the estimate, okay? So if you made in your last couple of years, you were writing at $200,000 per year, you need $140,000 in retirement. So you need to have enough retirement money to be able to get there. I was using 7%. If you use 10%, then you're going to have a much higher number than 1.5 million. And the way to do this, if you get your phone, you can do this later. You can pull up a compound interest calculator, and you can figure out all of your goals. So if you want to go to Hajj in 5 years, you just plug in How much money am I saving to start with? I put in $100. What is my rate of return? Put in 8%. How much am I putting in on a monthly basis? And what is the term? How many years? 5 years. And it'll tell you you're going to have 18,000. So you say, okay, what if I put in $50 more per month? You'll have 20,000. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And you can figure that out for each one of your goals: retirement, education, health, all of the different goals that you have. If you have a 401k, you can put in 23,500 right now. Next year, it's going up a little bit. If you are 50 or above, you can put in another, I think, 7,000 or 6,500. So basically, you'll be able to put in 30,000 this year if you're 50 plus. If you are an employer, you can start up your own 401k or your own simple IRA or your own SEP IRA. Just ask those questions. We have so many business owners that are, one employee, 15 employees, and they start their own plan. It doesn't cost a lot, and you'll be able to benefit. And I think the state of Oregon requires or certain employers now to have, it's mandatory that you provide a retirement account for your employees. Just quickly through here, if you don't believe me that you need a lot of money in your retirement account, here's why. So if you are a man, 65 years of age here today, okay, think about yourself for a second. I'm not quite there, getting there. You have a 50% chance of making it to 85. May Allah give you that, and to all of us. Do I hear an Ameen? Ameen. So we want at least that. Now, if you're a female and you're 65, you have a 50% chance to get to 88. Women live longer, right? You have a 25% chance, men, of getting to 92, and for women to 94. Does anyone have people in your family that are 85 or above? Only four of you? Okay, so maybe others are not playing my game today, right? How about you, sisters? Anybody have anyone 85 or above? Maybe you don't know the ladies and people's ages, right? But I know one of my aunts, she passed away like at 99. And then, my uncles are all, 70, 80, 85, 87. They're getting up there in age now, right? So these numbers are really coming true. Um, what I tell people is 20 years ago when we used to talk about, uncle such and such passed away, he was 70 years old, we'd say, mashallah, he lived a great life, right? Now, if you say uncle passed away at age 70, what would we say? What happened? Why? Did he have an accident? Like, what happened? Why would he die at 70? People are living longer, right? So the reason I go through all of that for you is for you to understand, if you're on Social Security only and you have a little bit of money, it's not going to be enough. So let's go back here for a second. I I will try to get past all of this, but this is critical, right? If you ended up with 307,000 and you're pulling out $50,000 a year to live, how long are you going to have that money? Yeah, 6, 7 years if you have some growth on it. Like, it's not going to be enough, right? If we're saying that you might live till 85, so this is why a lot of people, they go and live with their kids. Okay, what I want you to do is consider that. Hey, children, if you have parents, have them live with you, right? It's a good thing. But if you're a parent, you're now retired and you have that wealth, and your child, he's 35 years old and he's paying this mortgage, having trouble, and you're able to pull out $100,000 a year, you pay their mortgage for them. So what, right? They're going to be so happy. Like, this relationship's working great. Now, people that are taking your parents in, they don't have to pay you anything. But parents, like, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can just pay for the rent or the utilities or whatever because we have enough. But we may not be able to live on our own because we need somebody to support us, right? So you can do those things if you have money. Also, our whole life we give sadaqah, we give zakat, and then, when you get later in life and you can't give a dime, think about all this stuff. Like, we're allowed to think this way in Islam, right? Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentioned, live your life as if you'll live forever, and practice your deen as if you'll die tomorrow. Right? What an amazing saying. Because even in the Prophet ﷺ said, if you get to the day of judgment, still plant the seed. I mean, plant the tree, right? Still plant it. If you're able to do it, just keep doing it. Because it's about the intention and the reward and all that. So if you're living your life as if you're going to live forever, you're going to plan. Okay? You're not going to try to, make everything grand and look for the next valley of gold. but you want to plan for all the things about your life, go ahead and do that. But then on the deen side, make up your prayers. Take care of your zakat. You owe zakat from the past. I mean, get a spreadsheet and figure out how much you owed for all those years and start paying it off like as if it's debt. Because on the day of judgment, zakat is going to be brandished on us, right? If you have gold you didn't pay on, it's going to be brandished upon you with heat. So all of these things we can think about the deen side and the life side book. Any questions? All right. Healthcare is costing a lot of money. So for people that retired, it's estimated that their health cost is going to be about 300,000. When I started my 401k when I was 19 years old, I had no idea I was supposed to take care of health costs, right? I was just thinking I can take vacations and things like that. I wasn't thinking I'm going to have to spend so much on healthcare, but that's another thing that we will have to deal with as well. Um, this one I'll talk about for a second. Yeah, 5 minutes. We have a whole 5 minutes left. So I got to go really, really fast if I want to get this out to you. So if you don't have a living trust or will, you have to go do it. The Prophet ﷺ said you can't travel for 2 days or more without having a will. Because if something happens to you, then it has to be inherited in the way that it's, according to the Quran. It's actually in the Quran. It tells you exactly how your wasiya needs to be. And so we consume in a halal fashion. We earn in a halal fashion. We spend in a halal fashion. We are going to invest in a halal fashion. But then when you get to your death, you're not distributing according to a halal fashion. It went all to your spouse. You're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to go to your children and this and that, right? So we don't like that, or we just don't know about it. When I ask the question throughout America, how many people have a trust or will? If I ask you that question, only a couple of you will raise your hand. Okay. The will is the minimum standard. You have to have a will according to Islam. Now, if you have a will only, and you have a home and you have some investments, you have some money, bank account, whatever, and if you do not if you have a will, which is a good thing, it's still going to go through probate, which means your inheritors won't receive it for months. I was talking to an attorney in Southern California. He said on $1 million house, the cost of probate just on that house is $22,000 right now. Okay, so go get your trust. If you do a trust, you avoid probate. It's all spelled out. Even the health stuff. Like I have, unfortunately, two of my uncles right now, and one's in CCU and one's in ICU. I don't know how that happened. All of us, a sudden, um, they're both in very bad situation, and so the trust also has something about what you want to do at that time. Do you want to be intubated for the rest of your life? Like how long? Do you not want to get oxygen after a certain point? All of these things are in there. And also, when I had mine done, my kids were under 18. So I had to say, who's going to take care of my children? And I went and talked to that person, my brother. And I said, will you do this, right? If something happens to both me and my wife, you have to take these decisions now. All right. I know too many situations, and you talk to the attorneys that I know where people did not have this. And subhanAllah, the situations that arise will make you cry. Okay. Um, the good news is if you have beneficiaries listed on your accounts, you're good with that. But again, you're still going to go through probate on your other stuff. So just for the home, if you own a home, you got to get a trust. So make sure you have the right beneficiary. If you have Ahmad Sheikh or Hani Amra or somebody come speak to you about just this part that I'm talking about here, they're going to give you examples where a woman was married to a husband. She had an account, and she had the husband as a beneficiary. Husband passes away. Okay. She gets remarried. She passes away, and the money goes to the old husband. Did I say that right? So anyway, what ended up happening is she passed away, and it went to the old husband, right? The one that she got divorced from, not that passed away. So what will happen is if you don't change your beneficiary, whatever is written there, even your divorced spouse, that's not mine. That's your Sharia. Even your divorced spouse is going to get your money, or somebody that you don't like that you had put in 50 years ago. So change your beneficiaries. Make sure you guys do that. All right. All right. There's a lot of stuff, right? Okay. Halal investing, you have to have a Sharia advisor looking at each portfolio. So for our funds, we have Amani advisors. every 3 months they look at our portfolios and they have to opine and make sure that we certify it, they certify it that it's halal or not, right? That it's all okay. And these are the things that we look at. Remember, I was telling you the percentages. So the debt ratio has to be less than 33%. Haram revenue has to be less than 5%. So if you look at our two main funds, the Amana Income Fund that started in 1986, the Growth Fund that started in 1994, their average debt is about 15%. That helped us in crisis situations in the stock market. The haram revenues are closer to less than 1%. Okay, that's the interest income. And then if you look at this graph here, starting in September of 2015 to September of 2025, the growth fund, if you had 10,000 in there, has become over almost 47,000, almost 5 times. That's incredible, right? So if you were 50 years old and you had $1 million in your 401k in the growth fund, all of it, by the time you turned 60, you would have had 4.6 million, if you want to look at it that way, right? So that has had incredible growth. It's done better than S&P 500. The income fund has done about $30,000, and that's great because that you didn't have to take as much risk as the growth fund. So we're totally happy with that. The long-term returns are right here, and then we're just going to finish up. If you look at the 10-year returns of Amana Income Fund, they're about 12% per year average. You guys remember the percentage I kept putting in the examples? 7, right? I was being really conservative. What if we have a 10-year period with only 7% return? So, we got 12%, right? The last 10 years. Since 1986, when it was formed, it has a 9% return per year every year. And I was telling you 7%. If you use the calculator that I was telling you about, and instead of putting 7%, you put in 9%, you will find that your $1.5 million retirement is going to be way more than that. Way more, right? I wish I could show it. I don't have time. And then Amana Growth Fund is about 5 or 6 down, almost 17% per year. I'm not guaranteeing this stuff later. I'm just giving you an example of what it is now. But you want to be in the market. Since 1928, the S&P 500, the stock market, has been up 9.6% per year. After the Great Depression, the Great Recession, COVID, 9/11, tech bubble, everything, right? Tariffs and everything else, the average is 9.6%. So you definitely want to be a part of that. And then any kind of investment, whether it's crypto, which is, you got to be really careful with, or whether it's real estate or stocks or gold even, or anything, you have to understand there's risk with it, right? And I would say that again, if you have 100% of your money, 90% needs to be managed because it is really important to you. And the 10%, go do what you want to do with it. That's the rule of thumb I use. And for those that are individual investors, we talked to two brothers here, and mashallah, they held on to good investments. But all of us that have bought stocks have had losers, and we never talk about the losers, do we? We don't talk about the losers, right? Do you? I mean, I've had some losers because I just thought, okay, let me go do this thing. But you have a loser, but you don't usually talk. But when a market goes down 20%, the individual stockholder loses 50 to 70% because they only have a few stocks and they're not well diversified. So just be cautious there, and then invest with caution, obviously. And that's our information. If you want to contact, Summer is on the right there. She can do a full presentation or like a one-on-one, especially for the sister. She's amazing. And then the rest of the guys here, if you look at Ahmad El Mahi, he was in Portland on Wednesday giving a talk at ICCH. I don't know how that happened, where I'm coming in on the next day, right? So anyway, if you want to connect with anyone, you can. And then I don't think we have time for questions, so we won't do that. But what I will say is you can take some material here. I usually don't push this on you, but I would really prefer it because my bag was really heavy. And the Portland airport, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's a 15-minute walk, like from your gate to baggage claim was 15, and it said 15-minute walk. And then I said 11 minutes, and that's just it's ridiculous. Well, the parts that are already done. So I have education savings account brochure to learn about, and I got a whole bunch on IRA if you want to learn about these, and then HSA, which is the health savings account. Okay, and then if you want to look at the returns, you can take a look at these. This has all the Amana funds in there, and then there's a whole bunch of pens, and then also there's the wildflower seeds. Okay, this is one per customer, so you can take one of those, and then you can take some pens as well. All right, thank you all very much. Okay, we have time for a question. Okay, go ahead. One question. Oh, the calculator that you can use on your phone, just look up compound interest calculator because interest works the same way as a return on stocks, but it's dependent on what you actually put your money into. So don't be afraid of the word interest in there. Compound interest calculator. Um, the growth fund in a retirement account is like 0.6. I think the income fund is like 0.7. It's right in here in the filter. That's the expense ratio. The returns that I was quoting you, was after expenses, by the way. Let's get the seed packets out here. Any other questions before we go? Because of the low risk. No, it's about 5% right now. Yeah, it's going to be anywhere from 2 to 5% on the market. Yes. Yeah, contact us. We can at least talk to you about it. But if you go to the website, there's a whole video has my voice on it about what Sukuk is. So you can learn a little bit more before that. And then, does anyone online have any questions? Anybody online have a question? If not, thank you very much. And
Assalamu alaikum.